So some of you have asked for a little bit more help with meter. And so I'm going to go through this quick video on how to get started with Scansion. Scansion is the process of looking at the meter for a line. So when I scan a line, I'm actually just marking stress and unstress, and I'm looking at traditional accentual syllabic meter in English. So there are lots of different types of meter. Accentual syllabic is when you mark the accents and the syllables together. It's what's used in sonnets and villanelles and things like that traditionally. So to hear the meter, some people have trouble hearing the stresses and unstresses. So I think when you think of this and the trouble you have, realize we mark unstress and stress, but we actually have more than that in English. So we have variations on stresses. I'd say we have at least 3 stresses a lot of people can hear. So you have like a strong stress, a medium stress, and a weak stress, and then unstressed. When you think of stress, do you want to think of something that your voice rises up? This is sometimes why we call it a rising meter, so it actually rises up with the stress. Or it's something that that stands out. There's a lift in your voice. I mean, you can think about it lots of different ways. People hear meter differently. Like when I do it, I like to put my fingers in my ear and try to hear it in my head. I also try to read the entire line to see how it works, and then come back and mark it, because I think sometimes when you just try to mark syllable by syllable, if you don't hear the line, you're not actually hearing it how you read it in the context. And reading in the context matters, because sometimes a word will shift stress depending on context. And this might strike you as odd. You're like, wait, words shift stress? Yeah, but they always do, and it's depending on how we're saying them and when we're saying them. You all know this, because when you're mad or angry, you might stress certain words over certain moments over other moments, right? You just do this. This is very human. Poets use this. So how a word fits in a line will work as a stress. For example, the first word in this is I. I can sometimes be stressed and sometimes not be stressed. It just depends on it. So you don't want to have this sense of it's always stress. Like if I say I am angry, I'm stressing the I. But if I say like, yeah, I didn't like that, I'm not stressing the I there. It just depends on the emotion of that line and what I want to do with it. Meter is in everything that's written in English, so even though it might not be a standard meter or regularized meter, all poets are using the rhythm of language all the time, so I think it's helpful to know it. So let's just take a look at these 6 lines. These are the first 6 lines in Sylvia Plath's Mad Girl's Love Song. It's a villanelle. You can't really see the form from here that much. The villanelle goes in stanzas of 3 all the way until the end. And the real trick about a villanelle is the first and third lines of the first stanza, and I have the first stanza and second one here. First and third lines will repeat over and over in the poem. So the entire line will repeat. You can see this with the very first line, I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. Repeats at the end of the second stanza. So it's one of the ways you can kind of see what it is. Villanelles also have a rhyme scheme of A, B, A. You can see that here in dead and head, they rhyme together, and again is a B rhyme. So when you're marking rhymes, you will start with A, and then you just do it alphabetically. So this is a B, and this is back to A. This red is an A, in is a B, like again, and dead. So ABA, ABA. So that's really how you mark the lines. But let's look at the lines. So stress and unstress is all we mark. So even though we have more than one stress, we just mark for stress. I think the most common error I see with students is reversing it. And you can kind of, if you do that, you'll want to look at some online examples and then just get it into your head that you need to reverse what you're doing, the sound of it. But so let's start with this. So I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I can really hear the rhythm in that line. Once you do it, slow it down if you need to. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. You can really feel the rhythm in that. So I shut. We have this unstress, stress, and sorry, my computer's going to add periods after each of them. That's not really there. I shut my eyes. I don't know if you can feel that, but it kind of goes down and up. I shut my eyes. So I come back up for this stress. I shut my eyes and all. It goes down and up here, and all. and all the world, it goes down and up again, and all the world drops dead. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. So for this drops dead, all the world drops dead, and all the world drops dead. I would probably do this unstressed, but if you hear this drops as a slight stress, you could actually mark this one as stress, and it would be something we could discuss, or you could discuss with whoever you're doing this with, because it is a slightly stronger feel to that word. So I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. So if you look at this line, you can see a pattern. It's unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress. There are names for the patterns in English, and this one is an iamb, or IAMB, or we call this an iambic line because it's the unstressed stress. It's the most common line for sonnets, villanelles, things like that. This one also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 repeating what we call feet. So if a pattern repeats, we call it a foot. So this has got 5 feet. And in English, there are names for all the 5 feet. Trimeter, there's all kind of them. You can look up a list of those. The 5 feet line is called a pentameter. So when I talk about this line, I call this iambic because it's an iamb, pentameter. So I know if somebody says that, then that line's going to have 10 syllables because an iamb's 2 syllables, so 10 syllables, and it's going to be unstressed stress 5 times, right? So that's what we have here. If you're marking this traditionally in stanchion, you might want to put a line to mark where each foot goes, and that's kind of how we know. This is an end-stopped line, which means it's got some kind of punctuation at the end. If it didn't, and it just rolled on, we would call it end-jammed. But it doesn't. It's called end-stopped. So let's go down to this next line and see if I can do the same thing. I lift my lids and all is born again. I lift my lids and all is born again. I don't know if you can hear that with me reading it, but if you read it to yourself, it really has a rhythm built into it. I lift my lids and all is born again. Now, if you go to scan a line and it doesn't sound like that, that just means a lot of times the poet is playing with the rhythm to give it some interest, or because they want to stress something. Stress a certain word. So if you look at something like Shakespeare, he will often vary the rhythm quite a bit because he wants to play with the sound of it. He wants you to focus on some specific word or idea, and he does that through the meter. Here it's fairly regular, so I lift. So unstressed, stress, that dash, that slash is unstressed. It's stress, unstressed, and then I have another stress, my lids. I lift my lids. I don't know if you can hear it rise. This is what we call a rising meter because it rises up. And all is born again. So with a word like again, where you have a 2-syllable word, she doesn't have a lot of them in here, but if you look at it, these you can look in the dictionary. The dictionary will actually show you how to do this. I think a lot of people, they don't realize what a dictionary is doing. It has stress lines in a dictionary. That straight up line in a good dictionary will be a stress mark. So you can actually look it up in a dictionary to see how we typically read it in English. But you can also just try to stress the word in different ways. So again is stressed, unstressed. Again, or again, is a stress on the end. So you just try to repeat it to yourself and hear how you would naturally do it. Again. I don't ever say again, I say again, which means the stress is on the end. All right, let's go do another line here. So I think I made you up inside my head. Very rhythmical again. So I think I climb up here. I made you up. The up even, it goes up with the rhythm. Up, inside is a 2-syllable one. It's the same way. Inside or inside. Inside, we don't do it that way. We say inside, which is a stress on the end. Inside my head. So this kind of gets you going with it. I think that helps a little bit. Once you get the hang of it a little bit more, I think you don't always have to mark the unstresses once you get going. So when, if I'm marking a line myself, if I'm just like at home, I'm like, okay, I'll look at this line and I'm only going to mark the stresses. Like on a line like this, I'll say the stars go waltzing out in blue, waltzing, the guards go waltzing out. I'll give out a stress too, out in blue and red. So this is another regular line, because if I look at the ones I didn't stress, I got unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress. So this is very regular. This is not typical. Most poets are not this regular when they start writing. There's typically a little bit more variation. Plath is being very regular on this one. It kind of goes with the theme of the Mad Girl's love song in there, this kind of weird regularity of the madness, which is not typical to be this regular, but that kind of ties in with their meaning. I just want to get to this next line just quickly, because this last line is the same as the first one, so we already have it scanned. But this one, an arbitrary, so we got a 4-syllable word. Now you can look this up, but you can also just listen to it in the line. So if I'm going to mark this one, I'm going to go and let's do it up a line just to make it easier for you guys. And arbitrary. So arbitrary, blackness, gallops in. So another regular line here. You can't let the lines regularity. If there's a bunch of regular lines together, don't assume the next line will be regular. Go through and see it. But this one, arbitrary, these kind of words are difficult. I think sound them out in your head, arbitrary, and see how they work. Arbitrary, arbitrary. You just got to play with the stresses and see how it works. So this, very regular poem, iambic pentameter, pretty much all the way throughout this section. So this is literally how you do the process of scansion. You go through and do it. The great benefit of doing this is not that you know how to do this every time. I mean, writing poems in meter, I think, is great practice for a poet, even if you don't use meter, because it teaches you how to fit words into a meter and really condenses what you want to write. But being able to scan a poem and see the meter makes you see sometimes when meter jumps out at you, so that you can see when a poet is really stressing something that even they might, if they're not really focused on meter themselves, that poet might not see it even that much, but their words will add stress to what they're trying to stress, or even what they're unstressing, I think is important. So it kind of tells you how to interpret a line. As a writer, it shows you how to add emphasis into a line. So hopefully this helps. Pretty short video on just how to get started with scansion and doing meter.